Now, we pick it up here at the Praetorium. The Praetorium, like so many houses in the Middle East, if you've been to the Middle East, not in the old city of Jerusalem, but it has a walled courtyard. It reminds me of Phoenix. I used to live in Phoenix, and everybody had a walled-in backyard. Now, in the Praetorium, there was an area in the courtyard, and you could come up some steps. About halfway up the steps, there was a chair, and this chair was the judgment seat. And whoever the prefect was, if they sat in the judgment seat and whatever they proclaimed, that was law. And you remember that when Pilate proclaims that Jesus is to be killed, he then washes his hands. Remember that? I wash my hands of this. He washes his hands of it, literally washes his hands to say, this one's not on me. But if you come back up, all the way up the steps, there is a porch. And the porch has a portico on it. It has an overhang because, remember, it's hot. It's particularly hot there in the summer. And then inside the portico is a room. And that is where Jesus is. And so Pilate will move between the room with Jesus and outside on the portico, which down in the stairs looks out over the courtyard. Now, this is an incredibly important conversation to us, the conversation between Pilate and the conversation between Jesus at his passion. And if you look closely, and I'm going to go through it a little bit, you'll notice that the question arises, who's interviewing whom? So Pilate is supposedly interviewing Jesus, but you'll notice that Jesus never surrenders control, and he's interviewing Pilate. So you also might notice who's on trial here. Is Jesus the one on trial? Or is Pilate on trial? And now we come in to the drama, the first words of Pilate before Jesus. Likely the first time, certainly as far as the Bible is concerned, the first time Pilate has ever spoken to Jesus. It says, Pilate entered the headquarters again. In other words, he comes into that room, summoned Jesus. Now Jesus has already been beaten. He's already been beaten. He's tied. And asked him, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus answered, do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me? Jesus starts the interview of Pilate. Pilate replied, I'm not a Jew, am I? Pilate, denying everything. Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done? So Pilate has got to solve the problem here. And Jesus answered, my kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here. So you notice that Jesus doesn't answer his question. Right? Jesus answers the previous question, almost. So instead of asking, are you a king, he answers about a kingdom. Now, at this point, when he says, my kingdom is not of this world, it clicks off. So Pilate has no idea what Jesus is talking about. No idea. So you notice in John's gospel that oftentimes people in John's gospel are talking on this level, and Jesus is answering on this level. These people are talking about the world as they see it, and Jesus is answering from a spiritual level, from the level of the kingdom. So often in John's gospel, there is a complete disconnect in the conversation, and then so it is here. And then he said, you say that I'm a king. Which is a completely ambivalent answer, right? Do we translate it, yes, you've got it right, you say that I'm a king, or, well, who cares that you say that I'm a king? Not an issue for me. And in the Synoptic Gospels, that's pretty much the end of the trial. But here in John's Gospel, we get more of it.